Amara's hands trembled as she pushed open the door to apartment 14C. The Jang delivery bag slipped from her grip, noodles spilling across white marble streaked with blood. 3 newborns screamed from somewhere inside the penthouse, their cries piercing through the eerie silence that followed the gunshots she'd heard from the elevator. "Hello, your order," her voice died in her throat. A man lay face down in the nursery doorway, designer suit soaked crimson, one hand stretched desperately toward 3 crying infants in expensive cribs. Korean. Late 30s. Even dying, he was beautiful in that sharp-featured way soul men carried themselves. But it was what he clutched in his other hand that made Amara's breath catch. A baby bottle. Filled not with formula, but with dozens of blood-red rubies that caught the city lights streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. She dropped to her knees beside him, fingers fumbling for her phone. His eyes snapped open, dark and unfocused, and his hand shot out to grab her wrist with surprising strength for someone bleeding out. He rasped, then switched to heavily accented English. "You're black." "Yeah, Nigerian. What does that? The babies, I need to call." His grip tightened. "No police. No hospital." Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. You smell like home. Palm oil. Fried plantain. Real cooking." His eyes searched her face with desperate intensity. "Not like the others. Not plastic. Real." Amara tried to pull away, but he wouldn't let go. Behind them, the triplets' cries grew more frantic. "I don't know you, I just deliver food, I can't. Save my sons." His voice cracked. 1 week. Just hide us for 1 week. I'll pay anything. There's a black card in my jacket. Password is your birthday. September 14th. Ice flooded Amara's veins. "How do you know my birthday?" Before he could answer, the elevator chimed in the hallway. His eyes widened in terror. "Go. Back door. Take the babies. Please, Amara. Please. How do you know my name?" The elevator doors opened. A tall Korean woman in a blood-splattered Chanel suit stepped into the apartment, a gun with a silencer hanging loosely from her manicured hand. Her eyes locked onto Amara with the cold calculation of a predator. "Step away from him," the woman said in perfect English. "Now. If you're already hooked by this insane situation, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because the story is about to get wild. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next." Amara's instincts screamed at her to run, but the baby's cries pulled at something deeper. She stood slowly, hands raised, positioning herself between the armed woman and the dying man. "I'm just the delivery girl," Amara said, voice steadier than she felt. "I don't know what's happening here, but those babies need help." The woman's expression flickered, something almost like approval crossing her face before the mask returned. She lowered the gun slightly and moved past Amara to check the man's pulse. Her fingers pressed against his neck, and she cursed softly in Korean. "He's alive." "Barely." The woman looked up at Amara, really seeing her for the first time. "You're the Jang girl. Building C, apartment 502. You deliver here every Tuesday and Friday. Extra pickled radish, no onions." Amara's stomach dropped. "You've been watching me." "He has." The woman gestured to the unconscious man. "For 3 months. Ever since you made him laugh when you told him his terrible English was cute but tragic and taught him to say thank you in Yoruba. He's been obsessed." "That's insane. I don't even know his name." "J1 Park." And you're Amara Okafor, 24, from Lagos, been in Seoul for 2 years, sending money home to your mom and 3 younger siblings. You work 3 jobs, take Korean classes on Tuesdays, and you make the best jollof rice in Itaewon according to your Instagram. The woman's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. He knows everything about you. One of the babies, the smallest one, choked on his own cries. Without thinking, Amara moved to the crib and scooped him up, bouncing him gently the way her mother had taught her with her youngest brother. The baby's cries softened to hiccups against her shoulder. "Who are you?" Amara demanded, picking up a second baby with her free arm. "Hannah." His business partner. Hannah holstered her gun and grabbed the third infant, handling him with surprising competence. "And before you ask, yes, business is a euphemism. These babies, they're why someone just tried to kill him. His ex-wife died in childbirth 3 weeks ago. A rival syndicate found out he had heirs. Now they want him and his sons dead before the old boss's empire passes to them." "Syndicate," Amara repeated slowly. "You mean like, mafia?" "We prefer organization, but yes." Hannah checked Jae-won's pulse again. "He can't go to a hospital. They have people everywhere. He needs somewhere safe to recover. Somewhere no one would think to look. And he chose my apartment because I make good jollof rice. That's the most ridiculous." "He chose you because you're invisible to his world," Hannah interrupted. "A foreign delivery driver in Gangnam, no one pays attention to you. You're the perfect cover. Plus, he's been half in love with you since you told him K-dramas lied about Korean men being romantic and he should be ashamed of himself." Heat crept up Amara's neck. She remembered that conversation. Jae-won had seemed different from her usual customers, less condescending, genuinely curious about her life in Seoul. He'd asked about Nigerian food, about her family, about why she came to Korea. She'd thought he was just bored and lonely. Not stalking her. "I can't harbor a criminal," Amara said, even as the baby in her arms nuzzled against her chest, finally calm. "I have a visa to protect, a family depending on me." 5 million won. Hannah met her eyes. "For 1 week. Plus a new visa, permanent residency if you want it, and enough to bring your entire family to Korea if that's your dream. He has connections. The money. Everything you've been breaking your back for." Amara looked down at the tiny baby in her arms, at his perfect little face still scrunched from crying, at the way his tiny fist had wrapped around her finger. She thought about her mother's voice on the phone last week, tired and worn, talking about the leaking roof they couldn't afford to fix. About her sister who wanted to go to university but couldn't afford the fees. About the years stretching ahead of her, delivering food in the cold, sleeping 4 hours a night, always one emergency away from disaster. 1 week, Amara heard herself say. "Then he leaves and I never see any of you again." Hannah nodded. "Deal. Help me get him to your car." Getting a bleeding, unconscious man and 3 newborns down the service elevator and into Amara's beat-up Hyundai should have been impossible. But Hannah moved with military precision, wrapping Jae-won's wounds with practiced efficiency, fashioning a makeshift baby carrier from expensive scarves, and somehow convincing the night security guard they were just helping a drunk friend home while babysitting for a cousin. By the time they reached Amara's tiny studio apartment in a working-class neighborhood miles from Gangnam's glitter, dawn was breaking over Seoul's skyline. Hannah laid Jae-won on Amara's only bed while Amara arranged the babies in a nest of pillows on the floor, her mind still reeling. "There's a doctor who owes Jae-won a favor," Hannah said, already on her phone. "He'll come tonight to check the wound. Meanwhile, you have my number. Anything strange, anyone asking questions, you call me immediately. She paused at the door, studying Amara with those calculating eyes. He really does like you, you know. This wasn't just a strategy. When he woke up after being shot, the first thing he said was your name. Not his son's. Not his business. Yours. Then she was gone, and Amara was alone with 3 newborns and an unconscious mafia boss bleeding on her bed. What have I done? She whispered to the babies, who stared up at her with dark, innocent eyes that somehow looked exactly like their father's. The smallest one, the one she'd picked up first, smiled. The first 3 days were hell. Jae-won burned with fever, thrashing and calling out in Korean. Amara didn't understand most of it, but she caught enough words to know he was reliving whatever violence had led to that penthouse covered in blood. The babies cried in rotation, never all 3 at once, but never giving her more than 45 minutes of sleep either. Her landlady, Mrs. Kim, knocked twice asking about the noise, forcing Amara to invent a story about babysitting for a friend who'd had an emergency. The doctor came on the second night, a stern older Korean man who looked at Amara with barely concealed disapproval but said nothing as he treated Jae-won's wounds. Gunshot to the abdomen, missed major organs by centimeters. Lucky. He'd recover if infection didn't set in. Keep him quiet, the doctor instructed in English. No stress. Lots of fluids. These antibiotics are twice daily. He glanced at the babies. And get help. You can't do this alone. But she had to. Hannah had disappeared, leaving only a burner phone that rang twice with automated messages about shipments in code Amara couldn't decipher. She called in sick to all 3 of her jobs, watching her savings drain with each missed shift. The black card Jae-won had mentioned was useless without him consciously giving her the real password. On the 3rd night, as Amara paced the tiny apartment with a screaming baby on her shoulder, her own body running on fumes and instant noodles, Jae-won's eyes finally opened. Amara, he whispered, voice rough as gravel. She nearly dropped the baby. You're awake. The boys. Are they? Fine. All 3 are fine. Eating, crying, pooping like champions. She set the baby down in his pillow nest and approached the bed cautiously. How are you feeling? Like I was shot. A weak smile crossed his face. You stayed. I wasn't sure you would. Hannah offered me 5 million won. I'm practical, not stupid. But even as she said it, Amara knew money wasn't the only reason she hadn't called the police. Something about seeing him with those babies, the desperate love in his eyes even as he bled out, had gotten under her skin. Jae-won tried to sit up and immediately gasped in pain. Amara's hands were on his shoulders before she thought about it, easing him back down. Don't be an idiot, she muttered. You were shot 3 days ago. The doctor said no stress, no movement. 3 days. Panic flashed across his face. I need to contact Hannah. Yeah, she knows. She's handling it, whatever it is. Amara pulled back, suddenly aware of how close she'd gotten, how her hands were still on his bare chest where the doctor had rebandaged his wound. You need to rest. His hand caught hers before she could retreat. Thank you. For saving my life. My son's lives. Thank you for telling me the truth. Amara met his eyes. Why do you know everything about me and don't say it's because I make good Jang. Make sure you're subscribed, because the answer to this question is going to change everything. Drop a like if you're as confused as Amara right now, and comment below what you think is really going on here. Jae-won was quiet for a long moment, his thumb unconsciously tracing circles on her palm. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost vulnerable. 6 months ago, my wife told me she was pregnant. I was happy at first, then terrified. I'm not a good man, Amara. The things I do, the life I lead. I knew I couldn't raise children in that world. I started thinking about leaving. Getting out. Taking my family somewhere safe and normal and boring. He paused, jaw tightening. Then she told me the babies weren't mine. She'd gotten pregnant by my second-in-command to secure her position in the organization. She wanted to use our marriage to control everything when my father-in-law retired. I was just convenient. That's horrible, Amara said softly. I was going to divorce her. Leave the organization entirely. But then she had complications during the pregnancy. Bed rest. She needed help, and she had no one she could trust. So I hired people to watch her, make sure she was safe. One of them was you. Amara's blood went cold. What? Not you specifically. The delivery service you work for. We own it? Well, we own the building it operates from, and the owner pays us protection money, which is basically the same thing. You came to deliver food to my wife at our secondary apartment. She was cruel to you. Threw the order at you, called you racial slurs, demanded you remake everything because she didn't eat food touched by black hands. The memory surfaced, ugly and sharp. 6 months ago. A pregnant Korean woman in a luxury apartment near Gangnam, her face twisted with disgust as she berated Amara for 20 minutes over a harmless mistake. Amara had gone home and cried, feeling small and foreign and worthless. You stood there and took it, Jae-won continued. You didn't cry, didn't yell back. When she finally let you leave, you said in perfect Korean, I hope your baby knows more kindness than you do. Then you left. I got fired for that, Amara said bitterly. Your wife called my boss, got me blacklisted from delivering to that building. I know. I got you unfired. Paid your boss double to ignore her complaint and give you a raise. Jae-won's grip on her hand tightened. Then I couldn't stop thinking about you. About how you handled that situation with more grace and dignity than anyone in my world ever shows. So I started watching your Instagram, your delivery routes. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help it. You were like this bright spot of real in a world full of fake. That's called stalking, Jae-won. That's creepy. I know. He had the decency to look ashamed. But then my wife died giving birth to the triplets, and her last words were that they weren't mine anyway, that she hoped I'd die trying to raise them alone. A DNA test proved her right. These boys aren't biologically mine. But I held them, and I didn't care. They were innocent. They needed me. And I realized I could give them the life I'd always wanted. Normal. Safe. Away from all this violence. One of the babies started crying. Amara pulled her hand free and went to pick him up, needing the distance to process everything Jae-won had just said. So your plan was what she asked, bouncing the baby. Fake your own death, escape to some beach in Thailand, raise 3 kids alone. Yes, actually, I'd been moving money, making arrangements. But the organization found out about my plans. They sent someone to kill me before I could leave. Take me and the heirs to my father-in-law's territory. His voice went hard. They killed my guards, shot me in my own nursery. I thought I was dead. Then you walked in smelling like home, and I knew you were my only chance. Home, Amara repeated. I'm Nigerian, you're Korean. How do I smell like home? My mother was Filipino. She married my Korean father when he was stationed in Manila, and moved to Seoul for him. She used to cook Southeast Asian food with palm oil, plantains when she could find them, bright bold flavors the Korean side of the family hated. They said she was making their son too foreign. When she died, my father erased every trace of her from our home. I was 7. Something in Amara's chest cracked. She looked at this dangerous, broken man on her bed, and saw the little boy who'd lost his mother and spent his whole life trying to be Korean enough to be accepted. Is that why you picked me? She asked quietly. Because I reminded you of her. At first, maybe. But then I got to know you, even from a distance. The way you light up when you talk to your family on video calls. How you help Mrs. Kim with her groceries even though she complains about everything you do. How you sing to yourself when you think no one's listening, mixing Yoruba and Korean lyrics like it's the most natural thing in the world. His eyes held hers. You're not a replacement for my mother, Amara. You're proof that there's still goodness in this world. That someone can be strong and kind at the same time. That's what I want my sons to see growing up. That's what I want for myself. The baby in Amara's arms had fallen asleep. She looked down at his perfect little face, then at his 2 brothers sleeping peacefully in their nest of pillows, then back at J1. You realize how insane this is, right? You stalked me, got shot, and now you're confessing feelings while bleeding on my bed. This isn't romantic. This is deranged. I know. He smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it reached his eyes. But is it working even a little bit? Against every bit of common sense she possessed, Amara felt her lips twitch. You're the worst. I've been told. The next 4 days fell into a strange domestic rhythm that felt almost normal if Amara ignored the gun Hannah had left under her bed and the fact that she was harboring a fugitive crime boss. J1 healed quickly, his body apparently used to recovering from violence. By day 5, he was sitting up, helping with the babies despite Amara's protests. He was good with them, gentle and patient in a way that didn't match the dangerous world he came from. He'd named them Minjun, Ao, and Nika, mixing Korean and Nigerian names in a way that made Amara's heart squeeze uncomfortably in her chest. Ao means joy in Yoruba, she said on the 6th morning, watching him change a diaper with surprising competence. Did you look that up, or is this more creepy stalker knowledge? I asked Mrs. Kim's daughter to teach me basic Yoruba phrases, he admitted, not looking up from his careful work with baby wipes. Wanted to surprise you on your next delivery. Then I got shot, so the timing was off. You're ridiculous. But Amara was smiling as she said it, preparing bottles with practiced efficiency. Over the past week, she'd learned each baby's preferences. Minjun liked to be held facing outward so he could see everything. Ao had the strongest grip and would only sleep if someone was touching him. Nika was a quiet observer, watchful and serious even at 3 weeks old. My father would hate this, J1 said suddenly. His grandsons with Nigerian names, being raised by a black woman, his son learning Yoruba instead of expanding territory. He spent his whole life trying to make our family pure Korean, erasing any trace of my mother's influence. Your father sounds like a terrible person. He was. He died last year. Heart attack during a business meeting. J1 finished with the diaper and picked up Ao, holding him close. I didn't cry at his funeral. Everyone said I was being strong, respectful. Truth was, I felt relieved. Free. That's when I started planning my exit. Amara handed him a bottle and watched as he fed Ao with the focused attention he gave everything. There was something mesmerizing about seeing this dangerous man reduced to tenderness by a tiny baby. What happens after the week is up, she asked. Hannah gets you out of the country, you disappear, and I go back to delivering Jang like none of this happened. That was the plan. He looked up at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. But that was before I lived with you. Before I watched you dance around this tiny apartment at 3 a.m. singing Burna Boy to Kamnika. Before you taught me how to make proper Nigerian stew and laughed when I couldn't handle the pepper. Before I realized that leaving Seoul means leaving you, I didn't think I could do that. J1. I know. It's too fast, too complicated, too dangerous. You didn't ask for any of this. He shifted Ao to his shoulder, patting his back gently. But I'm asking now. Come with us. You and me and the boys. We'll go somewhere safe, somewhere you can finish school if you want, or start a restaurant, or do whatever makes you happy. I have enough money that none of us will ever have to work again. Amara's hands stilled on the bottle she was preparing. You're asking me to abandon my entire life. My family, my friends, everything I've built here. I'm asking you to build something new. With me. His voice dropped, urgent and raw. I know I don't deserve you. I know I've done terrible things, that my world is violent and dark, but these boys deserve a mother who will love them, and I deserve a chance to be better than my father was. You make me want to be better. Before Amara could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Her sister's university fees were due tomorrow. They were short 3 million won. Could Amara help? She stared at the number, at the impossible choice staring her in the face. 3 million won she didn't have, wouldn't have for months even if she worked herself to death. Or she could take J1's offer. Take the money, the security, the strange little family that had formed in her apartment over the past week. I need to think, she whispered. J1 nodded, understanding in his eyes. Take all the time you need. We still have one more day. That night, after the babies were finally asleep and J1 was resting, Amara sat on her tiny balcony overlooking the Seoul streets she'd come to know so well. 2 years of grinding, struggling, fighting to build something here. 2 years of being invisible, of being foreign, of being less than. And now here was a chance to leave it all behind, to have everything she'd ever wanted handed to her. Except it wasn't everything. It was an illusion, a fantasy built on blood, money and lies. J1 might be gentle with babies and charming when he wanted to be, but he was still a criminal. Still dangerous. Still someone who'd stalked her for months before orchestrating this entire situation. Unless he hadn't orchestrated it. Unless he really had been shot, really had been desperate, really had seen her as his only hope. Unless the feelings he claimed were real. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her younger brother's voice message, excited about his school project, asking when she'd visit home. The sound of her mother laughing in the background, tired but happy. Her family, the reason she'd come to Seoul in the first place. Amara closed her eyes and made her choice. The next morning, she found J1 in the kitchen attempting to make breakfast. The results were catastrophic, burnt eggs and smoking, but he looked so earnestly proud of himself that she couldn't help but laugh. I wanted to surprise you, he said sheepishly. Hannah's coming tonight to take us to the safe house. Thought we should celebrate our last morning here. About that. Amara turned off the stove before he burned down her apartment. I've decided. I'm not going with you. The hope in his eyes died so quickly it physically hurt to watch. Amara. Let me finish. She took a breath, steadying herself. I'm not going with you because I have a life here. A family depending on me, goals I haven't achieved yet, a whole identity I've built that I'm not ready to abandon. Not for money, not for security, and not for a man I've known for 1 week, no matter how much I might. She paused, surprised by the tears threatening to fall. No matter how I might feel. Jae-won set down the spatula slowly, his face carefully blank in that way she'd learned meant he was hiding devastation. I understand. But, Amara continued, I've also decided that I want to help you. Really help you. So here's my counter-offer. You go to your safe house, recover fully, set up your new life wherever you're going. Meanwhile, I'll keep working here, building my life, taking care of my family. And in 6 months, if you still feel the same way about me and I still feel the same way about you, we'll talk about what comes next. Real talk. Honest talk. Not talk that happens under crisis circumstances with gunshot wounds and newborns. Something flickered in his expression. Not quite hope, but close. 6 months. 6 months. You prove you can leave that life behind. Build something legitimate. Show me you're not just running from violence but running towards something better. And I'll prove I'm not just attracted to the fantasy of being saved, that what I feel is real and not just trauma bonding. And if after 6 months, we both still want this. Amara stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his healing body. Then we figure it out. Together. As equals. Not as a mafia boss and the delivery girl he stalked. I really am sorry about the stalking thing, he said softly. You should be. It's creepy as hell. She smiled despite herself. But I'm also sorry I'm not brave enough to just run away with you right now. Even though part of me really wants to. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Braver than anyone in my world. They run toward violence because they don't know anything else. You run toward building something better even when it's harder. Amara leaned into his touch, allowing herself this one moment of weakness before she had to be strong again. Take care of those boys. They deserve the world. They deserve you. His voice cracked. We all do. Then he was kissing her, and Amara was kissing him back, and it was desperate and tender and tinged with goodbye. His hands threaded through her hair, pulling her closer even as his wound made him gasp in pain. She gentled the kiss, slowing it down, pouring everything she felt into this one perfect moment before reality crashed back in. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jae-won pressed his forehead to hers. 6 months, he whispered. 6 months, she agreed. One of the babies started crying, then another, then all three in their typical cascade. They broke apart laughing through tears, moving together to soothe the boys one last time. Hannah arrived that evening with a van and 2 stone-faced men who looked like they could break Amara in half. She surveyed the scene, Jae-won holding 2 babies while Amara fed the third, and something almost like approval crossed her face. So she's not coming, Hannah said. It wasn't a question. Not yet, Jae-won corrected. But maybe someday. If you've made it this far, you better hit that subscribe button right now because the story is about to take a turn none of us saw coming. Comment below whether you think Amara made the right choice, and don't forget to like this video. Hannah nodded slowly. Smart girl. My offer of 5 million won still stands, plus compensation for the week of work. I don't want payment, Amara said. I want a favor. Name it. My sister. Chioma Okafor. She's brilliant, wants to study medicine but can't afford university. I want a full scholarship to Seoul National University, paid housing, everything. No strings, no debt, no connection to your organization. Clean money from a legitimate charity your organization definitely has for tax purposes. A slow smile spread across Hannah's face. I knew I liked you. Consider it done. The next hour was chaos. Car seats installed, bags packed, babies fussing at the disruption to their routine. Jae-won moved slowly, still healing, his face tight with pain he was trying to hide. Amara helped where she could, memorizing every detail of this strange little family she'd somehow become part of. When it was finally time to go, Jae-won pulled her aside one last time. I left something for you. Under the bed, hidden in the frame. Don't open it until we're gone. He pressed a burner phone into her hand. This number is secure. Call anytime, day or night. I'll answer. Jae-won. 6 months, he repeated, like a prayer. I'll count every day. Then he was gone, herded into the van by Hannah's efficient guards, 3 car seats strapped in back with 3 tiny babies who'd changed Amara's entire world in 1 week. She watched from her balcony as the van disappeared into Seoul's evening traffic, and tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. The apartment felt impossibly empty. Amara waited an hour before checking under the bed. Wedged into the frame was a manila envelope, thick with papers and something else. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Inside was a passport. Korean passport. Her face, her information, but with a different name. Legal documentation of citizenship. Adoption papers showing her as the legal mother of 3 boys, Minjun, Ao, and Nika Park. A property deed for an apartment in her real name, paid in full, in a nice neighborhood with good schools. Bank statements showing accounts in her name with enough money that she'd never have to work again if she didn't want to. And a letter, in Jae-won's careful handwriting. Amara, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've tried to write this letter 50 times and failed every time because there aren't words in Korean or English or Tagalog or even Yoruba to explain what you mean to me. You saved my life, but more than that, you saved my soul. You showed me that I could be more than my father's son, more than the violence I've lived. You showed me what it means to be truly brave. The documents in this envelope are yours regardless of what happens between us. The citizenship, the apartment, the money, all of it. I had Hannah arrange everything through legitimate channels. No blood money, no organization connections. It's clean. It's yours. You earned it by giving me and my sons a safe place to hide, but more importantly, by showing us what a real home feels like. I'm not asking you to be grateful. I'm not trying to buy your affection. I'm just trying to give you the same freedom and security you gave me. The choice to build your life however you want, without financial desperation forcing your hand. If after 6 months you decide you want nothing to do with me, I'll respect that. But you'll always be Minjun, Ao, and Nika's mother in my eyes, and in the eyes of the law. If something happens to me, they'll come to you. They'll have trust funds, guardians to help you, everything they need. You don't have to take them, but I hope you will. They love you already. So do I. I'll wait for you, Amara. 6 months, 6 years, 60 years. However long it takes. Forever yours, J1. P.S. The black card is in there too. The real password is September 14th in Yoruba. I really did learn some phrases. The boys should know both their heritages. Amara read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face, before she finally found the black card tucked in with the papers. She turned it over in her hands, this small piece of plastic that represented more money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes of delivering food. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. Still asking about the university fees. Amara opened her banking app, saw the zeros in her new account, and started laughing and crying at the same time. She transferred 3,000,001 to her mother with shaking fingers, then sent a message, "Don't ask questions. More is coming soon. Chioma's going to university. All of it was handled. I love you." Her mother's response was immediate and confused, but Amara couldn't answer yet. She was too busy processing the fact that her entire life had just changed in 1 week, that a man she barely knew had just handed her everything she'd been desperately working toward, that she was legally the mother of 3 babies she'd never see again unless she waited 6 months. Unless J1 kept his promise. Unless this insane situation somehow became her new reality. Amara looked around her tiny studio apartment, at the empty space where the boys' pillow nest had been, at the bottles still drying by her sink, at the life she'd thought she wanted. Then she looked at the papers in her lap, at the future J1 had given her, and made a decision. She picked up the burner phone and dialed the only number saved in it. He answered on the first ring. "Amara." "Hi," she said, voice thick with tears. "Just wanted to hear your voice. Make sure you get to the safe house okay? We just arrived, the boys are perfect. Missing you already, I think." Nika keeps looking around like she's searching for something. He paused. "For someone. I miss them too. All of you." Amara took a breath. "J1, about the 6 months. You don't have to wait that long if you don't want to," he said quickly. "Or you can wait longer. Whatever you need. Let me finish." She smiled through her tears. "I was going to say that 6 months feels like forever, but it also feels too soon to make a decision this big. So here's my counter offer. We talk. Every day if we can, whenever we can if we can't. You tell me about building your new life, I tell you about building mine. We get to know each other for real, not just in crisis mode. And when 6 months is up, we'll both know if this is real or just trauma and proximity and really good timing. I can work with that." She could hear the smile in his voice. "What should we talk about tonight? Tell me about your mother. Your real mother, not the version your father tried to erase. I want to know where you came from." So he told her. About growing up mixed in a country that didn't quite accept him, about his mother's cooking and her laughter and the way she'd sung to him in Tagalog. About losing her too young and spending his whole life trying to be Korean enough to earn his father's love. About the violence he'd been raised in and the peace he was trying to find. And Amara told him about Lagos, about her own mother's strength and sacrifice, about why she'd come to Seoul and what she wanted to build. They talked until her phone battery nearly died, until dawn crept across Seoul's skyline, until they both had to go but neither wanted to hang up. 6 months, J1 said finally. 6 months, Amara agreed. Day 1 starts now. Then I'll talk to you tomorrow. And every day after that. You better. She smiled. The boys need to hear their mother's voice, after all. The line went quiet for a moment. You called yourself their mother. The paperwork says I am. Who am I to argue with legal documents? Amara's voice softened. Besides, I held them when they cried. Fed them when they were hungry. Loved them when they needed it. That's what mothers do. I knew you were perfect for us. Stop being cheesy and go take care of our sons. They need their diapers changed, I can tell from here. He laughed. How can you possibly? You're right. Nika just made that face. How did you know? Mother's intuition. She was grinning now. Now go. We'll talk tomorrow. After they hung up, Amara sat in her apartment as Seoul woke up around her. She thought about the choice she'd made, the gamble she was taking, the strange and impossible situation she'd found herself in. A week ago, she was a delivery driver struggling to make rent. Now she was a legal citizen with financial security, the mother of 3 babies whose father was a mafia boss turned fugitive, and maybe, possibly, falling in love with the most complicated man she'd ever met. It was insane. It was reckless. It was the kind of thing that happened in K-dramas, not real life. But her phone buzzed with a message. A photo. 3 babies in matching onesies, peaceful and perfect in their new safe house. And a message, day 1. They're already asking about you in their own way. Counting down to day 180. Amara saved the photo as her wallpaper and got ready for her delivery shift. She still had a life to live, work to do, goals to achieve. But now she had something else too. Hope. Possibility. A future that looked nothing like what she'd planned but might be exactly what she needed. 6 months felt like forever. 6 months felt like no time at all. Either way, Amara was going to make every day count. 3 months passed in a blur of phone calls and text messages and photos of 3 boys growing impossibly fast. J1 had settled somewhere warm, he said, somewhere the boys could play outside year-round. He was building a legitimate business, something in import-export that had nothing to do with his old life. He sent pictures of a house with a yard, of baby toys scattered across clean floors, of 3 high chairs side by side in a bright kitchen. Amara used her new citizenship and financial freedom to finally enroll in business school. She kept her delivery job part-time, not because she needed the money anymore, but because she needed to prove to herself that she was still her, still the girl who'd fought for everything she had. Her sister Chioma arrived in Seoul for university, stunned and grateful and full of questions Amara deflected with vague answers about winning a scholarship lottery. Mrs. Kim noticed the changes. "You look different," she said one evening, catching Amara coming home with textbooks instead of delivery bags. "Happier. Lighter. You meet a man." "Something like that," Amara admitted. "Korean man." "Yes." Mrs. Kim made a disapproving sound. "Korean men are trouble. Too much drinking, too much pride. You deserve better." If only she knew, Amara thought, fighting a smile. But it wasn't all easy. There were nights when J1 called from a burner phone in a different country, his voice tight with stress over some complication with his exit from the organization. There were days when Amara wondered if she was being an idiot, building her life around a promise from a man she'd known for 1 week. There were moments when she questioned everything. Then J1 would send a video of Minjun taking his first steps, or Ao laughing at something silly, or Nika's serious little face concentrating on a toy, and Amara would remember why she was waiting. On the night of month 4, everything changed. Amara was studying at her kitchen table, now located in the nice apartment J1 had bought her, when her regular phone rang. Not the burner phone. Her regular phone. Unknown number. "Hello. Amara Okafor, a woman's voice, Korean accent, official tone. This is Detective Park from Seoul Metropolitan Police. We need you to come to the station immediately. It's about Jae-won Park and 3 minors listed as your legal dependents. Her blood turned to ice. What happened? Are the boys okay? The children are fine. They're here at the station. But Mr. Park is in custody, and we have questions about your involvement in his organization. The next few hours were a nightmare. Amara sat in an interrogation room answering questions she barely understood about organizations and money laundering and conspiracy charges. The detective showed her photos of Jae-won with known criminals, transactions that looked suspicious, evidence that he'd been planning his exit for months before the shooting. The shooting itself is interesting, Detective Park said, sliding another photo across the table. Crime scene. The penthouse. Blood. We have reason to believe Mr. Park staged his own assassination attempt as cover for leaving the organization. That he manipulated you into harboring him while he arranged his escape. That you were his unwitting accomplice. That's not true. Amara's voice shook. He was really shot. I saw the wound. He almost died. He was shot, yes. By someone he paid to make it look convincing. Non-fatal placement, professional medical team standing by, perfectly executed theater. The detective's eyes were hard. You've been played, Ms. Okafor. He used your kindness and your desperation to create the perfect cover story. Poor delivery driver saves the mafia boss's life out of the goodness of her heart. Very touching. Very convenient. No. No, that couldn't be right. The fear in his eyes had been real. The way he held his boys had been real. The 6 months of daily calls, of building something genuine, that had all been real. Hadn't it? I want to see him, Amara demanded. I want to hear this from him. That can be arranged. Detective Park stood. But first, tell me everything you know about his organization. Help us, and maybe we can minimize your legal exposure. Protect you and those children from being deported or worse. Amara's world tilted. Deported. Chioma was sent home. The boys were taken by social services. Everything she'd built, everything Jae-won had given her, all of it crumbling because she'd been stupid enough to believe a mafia boss could change. I don't know anything, she whispered. I just delivered food. That's all. The detective sighed. Wrong answer. They let her see the boys first. Minjun, Ao, and Nika, now 6 months old, were in a room with a social worker who looked at Amara with pity. The babies reached for her immediately, crying, clearly terrified by the strange place and strange people. Hey, it's okay, Amara murmured, gathering all 3 as best she could, her heart breaking. Mama's here. I've got you. They can stay with you tonight, the social worker said gently. But depending on what happens with Mr. Park's case, we may need to place them in temporary care until this is sorted out. No. Amara held them tighter. No, they're mine. I'm their legal mother. You can't take them. That documentation is being reviewed. If it was obtained fraudulently as part of Mr. Park's criminal enterprise, it may be invalid. Everything was falling apart. They finally let her see Jae-won an hour later, in a room with guards and cameras and thick glass between them. He looked thinner, exhausted, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. Amara. God, I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to be dragged into this. She picked up the phone on her side of the glass, her hand shaking. Tell me the truth. All of it? Did you stage the shooting? His face went carefully blank. What did they tell you? That you paid someone to shoot you. That you manipulated me. That everything was a lie to create cover for your escape. Her voice broke. Tell me it's not true. Please, J1. Tell me the past 6 months meant something real. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, the shooting was real. The danger was real. But he closed his eyes. But I knew you were working that night. I knew you'd be delivering to my building. I made sure of it. The world stopped. You, what? I didn't hire someone to shoot me. My former second-in-command really did try to kill me. But I knew the attempt was coming. I could have avoided it, gone into hiding with the boys somewhere safe. Instead, I stayed in that apartment and waited. Made sure I was in the nursery with the babies when he came. Made sure the door would be unlocked. Made sure you'd be the one to find me. Amara couldn't breathe. You risked your life. Risked your sons' lives. To manipulate me. No. His hand slammed against the glass. I risked my life to have a chance with you. To show you I was serious about changing, about leaving that world behind. I knew you'd never agree to help a criminal just because he asked nicely. But if you saved my life, if you bonded with the boys, if you saw that I was genuinely trying to be better. He trailed off, seeing the horror on her face. I gambled everything on you, Amara. And I'd do it again. Make sure you subscribe right now because what happens next is going to blow your mind. Drop a like if you can't believe what J1 just admitted, and comment below whether you think Amara should forgive him or not. You're insane. Tears streamed down her face. You could have died. Those babies could have been killed. All because you were obsessed with a woman you'd been stalking. Because I loved you. His voice cracked. Because in a life full of violence and lies, you were the only real thing I'd ever known. Because I knew if I survived, if we had even 1 week together, you'd see me. The real me. Not the monster everyone else saw. And I was right. You did see me. You chose to wait for me. You chose us. Based on lies. Amara was shaking now. Everything was built on manipulation and lies, and you risked those babies' lives for your obsession. The feelings weren't lies. The person I was with you, that was real. The father I became with those boys, that was real. The life I've been building for the past 6 months, completely clean and legitimate, that's real. The only lie was how it started. That's not a small lie, J1. That's everything. He pressed his hand to the glass, desperate. I know. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But those boys need you. They love you. You're the only mother they've ever known. Don't let my mistakes take you away from them. The police say the adoption papers might be fraudulent. That I might lose them anyway. The papers are legitimate. I made sure of it. My lawyer has backup documentation, witnesses, everything. They can't take the boys from you unless you give them up voluntarily. His eyes held hers. I'm going to prison, Amara. Probably for a long time. The organization is done with me, my old life is over. But you and the boys can still have everything I promised. The apartment, the money, the citizenship, all of it is untouchable. Clean. Legal. Yours. I don't want your blood money. It's not blood money. Frustration bled into his voice. I spent 6 months building a legitimate business, cleaning everyone that went into those accounts. I knew this day might come. I knew I might get caught. So I made sure everything I gave you was clean so they couldn't touch it. So you and the boys would be safe no matter what happened to me. Amara stood, needing distance from his desperate eyes and manipulative words and the part of her that still wanted to believe him. I need to think. Amara, please. I said I need to think. She slammed the phone down and walked out, ignoring his voice calling after her through the glass. The boys were waiting in the social services room, being watched by the same pitying social worker. Amara gathered them up, signed whatever papers they put in front of her, and took them home to her apartment. Their apartment. The one J1 had bought with money she didn't know whether to trust. That night, with 3 babies finally asleep after hours of crying and confusion, Amara sat on her balcony and tried to process everything. J1 had manipulated her from the start. Staged their entire meeting. Risked his own life and his son's lives for a chance to make her fall for him. It was psychotic. It was unforgivable. It had also worked. Because despite everything, despite the lies and manipulation and insanity, Amara had fallen for him. She'd fallen for the gentle way he handled the boys, for his self-deprecating humor, for his genuine desire to be better than his father. She'd fallen for 6 months of daily phone calls where he'd been vulnerable and honest about his fears and hopes. She'd fallen for the family they'd started to build together. But could she trust any of it, or was even the past 6 months just more manipulation, more carefully orchestrated theater from a man who'd spent his life lying professionally? Her phone buzzed. The burner phone. A message from an unknown number. Ms. Okafor, this is Attorney Kim, Mr. Park's lawyer. He's asked me to deliver a message. He's pleading guilty to all charges. He's cooperating fully with the police. He's refusing any deal that might reduce his sentence. He wants to make sure there's no possibility of the prosecution coming after you or claiming the boy's adoption was part of his criminal enterprise. He's sacrificing everything to keep you and them safe. He asked me to tell you that he loves you, and he's sorry, and he understands if you never want to see him again. The choice is yours. Amara read the message 3 times, then threw the phone across the balcony. He was still manipulating her. Even from jail, even facing life in prison, he was still finding ways to make her feel guilty, to make her feel like she owed him something. Except he was also protecting her. Giving up any chance of freedom to make sure she and the boys were safe. Falling on his sword so she could have the life he'd promised. God, she hated him. She hated how complicated he made everything. She hated that even now, knowing everything he'd done, part of her still wanted to run to that prison and tell him she'd wait for him however long it took. She was an idiot. A knock on her door startled her. Amara checked the peephole carefully, half expecting more police. Instead, she found Hannah standing in the hallway, elegant as ever despite the late hour. We need to talk, Hannah said when Amara opened the door. If you're here to defend him. I'm here to tell you the rest of the story. He's too noble or too stupid to tell you himself. Hannah walked past her into the apartment, glancing at the 3 sleeping babies. May I? Amara gestured to the couch, too tired to argue. Hannah sat, perfectly composed, and began speaking. Everything J1 told you is true. He did know you were working that night. He arranged to be in that apartment at that time. But what he didn't tell you is why he was so desperate. I don't care. His ex-wife's family put a hit out on the boys. Hannah's voice was flat, matter of fact. Professional killers, 3 of them, set to execute those babies the night you found them. J1 knew it was coming. His second in command was supposed to kill him first, then the children. Clean sweep of the bloodline. Amara's stomach dropped. Then why didn't he just run? Why stay there and risk? Because running meant living in hiding forever. It meant those boys growing up looking over their shoulders, never safe, never free. It meant the organization hunting them for the rest of their lives. Hannah leaned forward. But if J1 could stage his own death convincingly enough, if he could make everyone believe he and the boys died that night, they'd be free. Truly free. But he didn't die. No. Because you showed up 30 seconds earlier than expected. You saved his life, but you also complicated his plan. Hannah's expression softened slightly. He had a backup plan, of course. He always does. That's when he gambled everything on you. On your kindness, your strength, your capacity to love children who weren't yours. He'd been watching you for months, yes. Studying you, learning everything about you. Not because he was some creepy stalker, but because he was looking for someone he could trust with the most precious things in his world. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't. But it makes it understandable. Hannah pulled out her phone, showed Amara a photo. 3 men, dead, in what looked like a parking garage. These were the killers sent for the babies. I took care of them that night while you were getting J1 to safety. The organization thinks they succeeded, that J1 and his sons are dead. That's why we've all been safe for 6 months. Amara stared at the photo, feeling sick. You killed them. I did what was necessary to protect those children. Just like J1 did what was necessary when he gambled on you. Hannah pocketed her phone. He's in jail now, cooperating with the police, burning every bridge to his old life to keep you and the boys safe. He's going to prison for probably 15 to 20 years. He knows this. He accepts this. Because in his mind, it's worth it if you and those 3 babies get to live free and safe. Why are you telling me this? Because he won't. He thinks he doesn't deserve your forgiveness, that he manipulated you too much to ever ask for anything else. Hannah stood, smoothing her skirt. But those boys deserve to know their father. And you deserve to know the truth. All of it. Not just the parts that make him look like a monster, and not just the parts that make him look like a hero. The complicated, messy, desperate truth of a man who loved his sons and you enough to risk everything. After Hannah left, Amara sat in the dark for a long time, watching her boy sleep. Minjun with his thumb in his mouth, Ao sprawled like a starfish, Nika curled up tight like she was protecting herself even in sleep. 3 perfect little lives that existed because their father had made impossible choices. Her phone buzzed. Attorney Kim again. Mr. Park has been sentenced. 15 years, eligible for parole in 10 with good behavior. He wanted you to know he's signed over full custody of the children to you with no strings attached. You never have to see him again if you don't want to. He's also included a letter. The letter arrived by courier an hour later. Amara held it for a long time before opening it, her hands shaking. Amara, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve the chance to ask for it. What I did to you, the way I manipulated our first meeting, the lies I told myself were justified because I loved you, none of it was okay. You deserved honesty from the beginning, and I robbed you of that because I was too much of a coward to risk you saying no. But I need you to know some things. The past 6 months, every phone call, every text, every photo of the boys, all of that was real. Getting to know you, falling deeper in love with you every day, building dreams of a future together, that was the most honest I've ever been in my life. You made me want to be the man I pretended to be with you. You made me believe I could be more than my father's violence and my organization's darkness. I'm writing this from my cell, and I have a lot of time to think now. About the choices I made, the gambles I took, the way I put you and the boys at risk because I was arrogant enough to think I could control everything. I can't take any of it back. I can only try to make sure that from this moment forward, every decision I make is about protecting you and giving you the freedom to choose your own path. The boys are yours. Completely, legally, irrevocably yours. You don't owe me visitation, letters, photos, or anything else. If you decide you never want them to know I exist, I'll respect that. If you decide to tell them their father was a criminal who died in prison, I'll accept it. Whatever choice you make, I'll support it, even if it breaks my heart. But if there's any part of you that thinks maybe someday you could forgive me, that maybe someday you'd let me be part of your life again, even just as the boy's father and nothing more, then I'll wait. 10 years, 20 years, however long you need. I'll become the man you deserve. I'll earn back your trust one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of honesty at a time. I love you, Amara. I'll love you until my last breath. And I'm sorry. For everything. Forever yours, J1. P.S. The boy's favorite song is still that Burna Boy one you used to sing at 3 a.m. Minjun reaches for the phone every time he hears your voice. Ao learned to clap by copying you. Nika's first smile was for you. They love you. They need you. Thank you for being the mother they deserve. Amara read the letter until the words blurred, until tears soaked the paper, until she couldn't tell anymore if she was crying from anger or grief or something more complicated. The next morning, she made a decision. She called Attorney Kim. I want to visit him. Today if possible. Are you sure, Ms. Okafor? You're under no obligation. I'm sure. Set it up. The prison was cold and gray, designed to crush hope. Amara sat in the visitation room holding the letter, her heart pounding as they brought J1 in. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the orange jumpsuit and the reality of what he'd lost. But his eyes still lit up when he saw her. Amara. You came. He sat across from her, separated by a table instead of glass this time. How are the boys? Growing. Learning. Minjun took 3 steps yesterday. Ao won't stop babbling. Nika is still the serious one, watching everything like she's taking notes. A smile crossed his face, genuine and devastating. You're an amazing mother. Don't. Amara's voice was sharp. Don't do that. Don't try to manipulate me with compliments. The smile died. I wasn't. I meant it. But you're right. I've lost the right to say things like that. You've lost the right to a lot of things. She pulled out the letter, smoothed it on the table between them. But I came here to tell you something. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I feel betrayed and manipulated and stupid for falling for any of it. Part of me wants to take those boys and disappear, never think about you again. He nodded, accepting. I understand. But the other part of me remembers the man who held his sons with such tenderness. Who learned Yoruba phrases to surprise me. Who called me every single day for 6 months and talked about his fears and dreams like I was the only person he trusted. She met his eyes. That man was real, wasn't he? Not an act, not manipulation. Real. Yes. His voice broke. That man was real. That man is who I want to be for the rest of my life. Then here's what's going to happen. Amara took a breath. I'm going to raise those boys. I'm going to finish school, build my business, and create a good life for us. And once a month, I'm going to bring them here to visit their father. Not because I've forgiven you, not because we're together, but because those boys deserve to know where they came from. They deserve to know their father is trying to be better. Hope flickered across his face. Amara. I'm not done. She held up a hand. You're going to use these 10 to 15 years to actually change. Not perform change, not pretend for my benefit. Really, genuinely become the man you claimed you wanted to be. Get therapy. Get educated. Find something legitimate to do when you get out. Prove to me and to those boys that you're more than your father's son. I will. I promise. And maybe, when you get out, if you've really done the work, if I've had time to heal and process and figure out what I want. She paused, surprised by her own words. Maybe we can see if there's anything left to build on. As equals. As partners who chose each other freely, not through manipulation or desperation. J1 was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. You'd really give me that chance. I'm giving myself that chance, Amara corrected. The chance to see if what I felt during that 1 week and those 6 months was real or just trauma bonding. The chance to decide on my own terms if I want a future with you or if I'm better off alone. You don't get a vote. You lost that when you manipulated me. All you get is the opportunity to prove you're worth waiting for. That's more than I deserve. Way more. She stood to leave. 10 to 15 years is a long time, J1. I might meet someone else. I might decide I'm better off without you. I might change in ways you don't expect or like. You need to be okay with that possibility. I am. He stood too, awkward with the chains on his ankles. Thank you. For giving me any chance at all. For being the mother my sons need, for being stronger and braver than anyone I've ever known. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're in the final stretch and you don't want to miss how this ends. Comment below whether you think Amara is making the right choice, and smash that like button if this story has you feeling all the emotions. Amara left without looking back, but as she drove home to her boys, she felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, not yet. Maybe not ever in the way J1 wanted. But something like peace. Like acceptance. Like the beginning of healing. That night, she FaceTimed her mother for the first time in months, really talked to her instead of just sending money and quick updates. You look different, her mother said, studying her face through the screen. Older. Tired. But also, happy. I have 3 sons now, Amara said, panning the camera to show the sleeping babies. It's complicated. But they're mine, and I love them. Her mother was quiet for a long moment. Does their father know? He's in prison. He made some bad choices. But he's trying to do better. Are you safe? Yes, Mama. We're safe. More than safe. We have everything we need. And are you in love with this man? Leave it to her mother to cut through everything else and ask the one question Amara had been avoiding. I don't know, Amara admitted. Maybe. But I'm giving myself time to figure it out without pressure. He'll wait for me however long it takes. Her mother smiled. Then he's smarter than he looks. Any man who's willing to wait for my daughter deserves a chance. But if he hurts you again, your brothers and I will come to Korea and handle it. Amara laughed through tears. I love you, Mama. I love you too, Omomi. You're stronger than you know. The first year was the hardest. Learning to be a mother to 3 babies while finishing business school while processing the trauma of everything that had happened. Amara took the boys to visit Jaewon once a month as promised, watched him light up every time he saw them, saw how he tracked their development and remembered every detail she told him. He kept his promise too. Got his get in prison. Started taking college courses online. Went to therapy, though he said it was brutal facing everything he'd done and become. Sent her letters that were honest and raw and never once pressured her for more than she was willing to give. The second year was easier. The boys were walking, talking, becoming little people with distinct personalities. Minjun was the leader, bold and curious. Ao was the charmer, all smiles and mischief. Nika was still the watcher, thoughtful and careful, but with a fierce protective streak when it came to her brothers. Amara's business school thesis on immigrant entrepreneurship won awards. She started consulting for other foreign women trying to start businesses in Korea. Her sister Chioma graduated with honors, got accepted to medical school. Her family was thriving because Amara had made impossible choices and survived them. In the third year, she started dating a nice Korean man from her business program, respectful and stable and everything Jaewon wasn't. It lasted 4 months before she realized she was comparing everything he did to a criminal in prison, and that wasn't fair to anyone. You're still in love with him, Chioma said when Amara confessed about the breakup. With the prison guy. I'm in love with the idea of him, Amara corrected. With the family we could be. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? In the 4th year, Jaewon's letters started talking about plans for after release. He'd be eligible for parole in 6 more years if his behavior stayed perfect. He wanted to start a legitimate import-export business, maybe focusing on connecting Korean and Southeast Asian markets. He'd been learning Tagalog again, his mother's language, and he included phrases in his letters now alongside Korean and English. The boys should know all their heritages, he wrote. Korean from me, Nigerian from you, Filipino from my mother. They should grow up proud of being all of it, not ashamed of any of it. Amara read that letter 3 times, something warm unfurling in her chest. In the 5th year, she finally let herself admit the truth. She was waiting for him. Not because she had to, not because he'd manipulated her, but because she wanted to. Because the man in those letters, the man who showed up every month for 30-minute visits and never asked for more than she offered, the man who was genuinely trying to change, that was someone worth waiting for. She wrote him a letter saying so. Keep it simple. I'm still here. Still waiting. Still figuring things out. But I thought you should know this isn't an obligation anymore. It's a choice. I'm choosing to see where this goes. No promises about the future. But I'm choosing to stay open to the possibility. His response came 3 days later. Thank you. For choosing me when you don't have to. For giving me something to work toward beyond just freedom. I'm choosing you too, Amara. Every single day. I choose to be better, to do better, to become worthy of the chance you're giving me. I love you. I'll love you until my last breath. And I'll spend every day of the next 5 years proving it. The boys were 5 years old when everything changed again. They were starting to ask questions about their father, about why he lived in that gray building with the guards, about when he was coming home. Papa made some mistakes, Amara explained carefully. He hurt people, not on purpose but through bad choices. Now he's learning to make better choices. When he's learned enough, he'll come home. Will he live with us? Minjun asked. I don't know yet. Maybe. Would you like that? All three boys nodded enthusiastically. Then we'll see, Amara said, but no matter what, he'll always be your father and he'll always love you. That month's visit was different. The boys were old enough now to really interact with Jae-won, to play simple games through the barriers, to tell him about kindergarten and their friends and their favorite things. Watching him with them, Amara felt something click into place. This was her family. Complicated, messy, built on trauma and bad choices and desperate gambles. But still hers. Still worth fighting for. After the boys' time was up and they'd been taken back to the waiting room by a guard, Amara stayed behind. I need to tell you something, she said. Jae-won's expression went carefully neutral, like he was bracing for bad news. Okay. I love you. The words came out rushed, like if she didn't say them fast she'd lose her nerve. I'm in love with you. I have been for a while, maybe since that first week, maybe longer. And I'm tired of pretending I'm not sure about us. I'm sure. I want this. I want you. I want our family. His face went through about 17 emotions in 3 seconds. Amara. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying I've forgotten everything that happened or that I'm fully healed from it. But I'm saying I'm willing to try. When you get out, we'll figure it out together. Really together, as partners, as equals. I have 5 more years minimum, he said quietly. You're still young. You shouldn't have to wait. Stop telling me what I should and shouldn't do. She leaned forward, urgent. I'm making this choice freely. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. Is that okay with you? A slow smile spread across his face, the first real, unguarded smile she'd seen from him in 5 years. It's more than okay. It's everything. Good. Because the boys are already planning your room in our apartment. Minjun wants to paint it robot colors, whatever that means. He laughed, and it sounded like freedom. The next 5 years passed faster somehow. Amara's business was thriving. Her family back in Lagos was stable and happy. The boys were growing into amazing kids, trilingual and confident and so full of love it sometimes overwhelmed her. And every month, she and the boys visited their father, watching him change and grow and become someone new. Jae-won completed his bachelor's degree in business. Got certified in mediation and conflict resolution. Started teaching other inmates about building legitimate businesses after release. Became a model prisoner, not because he was performing for parole boards, but because he was genuinely doing the work of changing who he was at his core. His letters to Amara became love letters, real ones, the kind that made her blush and laugh and cry happy tears. They talked on the phone every week, long conversations about everything and nothing, building the foundation they'd never gotten to build the first time around. I can't believe I get to love you, he said one night, voice soft through the prison phone line. I can't believe you're letting me. You better believe it, Amara said. Because when you get out, I'm moving you into our apartment immediately and we're having the most normal, boring family life possible. Groceries and parent-teacher conferences and fights about whose turn it is to do dishes. Think you can handle domestic bliss? I can't wait. The day of his parole hearing, Amara brought the boys and waited in the hallway, her heart pounding. 10 years. He'd served 10 years, and now everything depended on the parole board's decision. When he walked out 3 hours later, wearing civilian clothes for the first time in a decade, his eyes found hers immediately. I'm free, he said, voice thick with emotion. I'm really free. The boys rushed him, all three talking over each other, telling him about the surprise party they'd planned, about his room that was painted robot colors after all, about how they couldn't wait for him to be home for real. Amara hung back, letting them have their moment. Then Jae-won looked up at her over their heads. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she said back. "I kept my promise. I changed. I did the work. I became someone better. I know. I saw it. So now what?" Amara walked forward, past the boys, until she was standing right in front of him. Close enough to touch for the first time in 10 years. She reached up and cupped his face, feeling him lean into her palm like he'd been starving for her touch. "Now we go home," she said. "All of us. Together. And we built the life we always talked about. The real one. The honest one. The one where we choose each other every single day, not because we're desperate or running or afraid, but because we want to." Before you go, make sure you've subscribed to this channel because stories like this don't come around every day. Hit that like button if this story moved you, and definitely comment below to let me know where you are watching this from. "I want to," Jae-won whispered. "God, Amara, I want so much. Then kiss me already. We've wasted enough time." So he did. In the hallway of a prison, with 3 boys cheering around them and 10 years of waiting and healing and growing between them, Jae-won kissed Amara like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Like she was home and he'd been lost. Like she was everything he'd been fighting for and everything he'd become. When they finally broke apart, the boys were making exaggerated gagging noises but grinning like they'd won the lottery. "Okay," Minjun announced. "Now we're a real family." "Right. Right," Amara said, taking Jae-won's hand in hers. "Now we're a real family." They drove home together, all 5 of them crammed into Amara's car, the boys talking over each other about all the things they wanted to show their father, all the places they wanted to take him. Jae-won sat in the passenger seat holding Amara's hand, staring out at Seoul like he was seeing it for the first time. "What are you thinking?" Amara asked at a red light. "That 11 years ago, I was a different person. Lost. Violent. Trapped in a life I hated. And now." He looked back at the boys, then at her. "Now I have everything. A woman I love who loves me back. 3 incredible sons. A chance to build something real and good. I don't deserve any of it." "You're right. You don't." Amara squeezed his hand. "But you earned it anyway. By changing, by waiting, by doing the work. That's how redemption works. Not about deserving, but about becoming." Philosophical Amara. "I missed her." "Shut up and enjoy the ride home. First stop is the apartment so you can see your robot-colored room. Second stop is Mrs. Kim's because she's been cooking for 3 days and has very strong opinions about welcoming you back. Third stop is my mother's video call because she wants to inspect you and make sure you're good enough for her daughter." Jae-won laughed. "Terrifying. I love it." That night, after the boys were asleep in their room, exhausted from the excitement, Amara and Jae-won sat on the balcony of her apartment, their apartment now looking out at Seoul's lights. "I meant what I said earlier," Jae-won said quietly. "About not deserving you, any of this. I manipulated you at the beginning. Put you and the boys at risk. Built our foundation on lies. Some days I still can't believe you forgave me." "I didn't forgive you because you deserved it," Amara said. "I forgave you because I deserved peace. Because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. And because. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Because I watched you spend 10 years becoming someone worthy of forgiveness. That matters. Does it make up for how we started? Nothing makes up for that. But it means we get to choose what happens next. We get to write a new story, one where we're both honest and both fighting for the same thing. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm choosing you, J1. Freely. Completely. With full knowledge of who you were and who you are now. Is that enough? It's everything. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. You're everything. They sat there for a long time, two people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and somehow built something beautiful from the wreckage. Two people who'd gambled everything on impossible choices and survived. Two people who'd learned that love wasn't about perfect beginnings, but about choosing to keep showing up, keep trying, keep building even when it was hard. What do we tell the boys? J1 asked eventually. About how we met? They're going to ask eventually, and want the full story. The truth, Amara said. Age-appropriate truth as they get older, but truth. That you made bad choices and spent time in prison. That you hurt people and had to make amends. That you met me in a complicated way and we had to work hard to build something real. They should know that people can change, that redemption is possible, that families come in all kinds of forms. Even families that start with mafia bosses and delivery drivers. Especially those. She smiled. We're going to be the weirdest family at every school event. Korean Mafia ex-con, Nigerian entrepreneur, 3 mixed kids who speak 4 languages and think robot colors are a legitimate decorating choice. I can't wait. Neither could Amara. Because despite everything, the trauma, the manipulation, the 10 years of waiting, the complicated mess of how they'd started, this was her family. Chosen, fought for, built from impossible circumstances and desperate choices and the stubborn belief that people could change if they really wanted to. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, J1 whispered back. Thank you. For seeing me. For waiting. For giving me a chance to be better. Thank you for taking it. For doing the work. For becoming the man I needed you to be. From inside the apartment, one of the boys called out in his sleep. They both stood automatically, muscle memory from years of midnight wakings, and went to check on their sons. Minjun had kicked off his blankets again. Ao was sprawled across his bed like a starfish. Nika was clutching her stuffed elephant, peaceful and perfect. Our boys, J1 said softly, adjusting blankets with the practiced ease of a father who'd learned through phone calls and monthly visits how to love from a distance. I still can't believe they're ours. Believe it? Amara stood beside him, watching their family sleep. This is real. We're real. And we get to keep building this for the rest of our lives. Best deal I ever made. Best gamble I ever took. They stood there together, two people who'd found each other in blood and rubies and baby cries, who'd built something impossible from broken pieces, who'd proven that love didn't have to start perfect to end up real. And in that moment, in that quiet apartment in Seoul with 3 sleeping boys and 10 years of healing between them, Amara knew she'd made the right choice. All of them. The choice to save a dying man. The choice to wait. The choice to forgive. The choice to love. Because this messy, complicated, beautiful family was worth every impossible moment that led to it. Let me know where you are watching this from in the comments below.